So I want to start with this is, I call it Hinduism 101. I'm going to go into the very basics. Hinduism is got about 1.2 billion followers in the world. It's number three, right after Christianity and Islam. But I also added perhaps it's number one in the universe, and I'll go into the rationale as to why I'm saying that. Here are the key concepts that we're going to cover today. One is that it's universal and not merely global. Then the concept of rebirth and why do we believe in the concept of rebirth in Hinduism. And then something called the Atma. Then the role of karma in the determination of the next life. And then the concept of God and where is God. So these are essentially what we're going to cover in this slide deck. So first, let's look at why do I say it's universal and not merely global. So according to the Hindu scriptures, and we have very many of them, so this is like kind of synthesized knowledge from several of them. There are 14 realms of existence in this universe that we belong to. And there are various life forms in all these realms of existence. Commonly, most of these life forms which are above us, there are 7 worlds above us and 7 below. So we call them as devas, but they are mortals. They just have a longer lifespan. So if you look at these various life forms, you can subdivide them into 2 categories. Devas that have 4.32 billion years as a lifespan, and there are some with much longer lifespan, which is 311 trillion years. They definitely have higher capabilities than us human beings. And, I've given you some of the examples like Brahma, Prajapati, Manu, Rishi, all these. These are various life forms that exist outside of Earth. So here is an artistic depiction of what these worlds look like. So you will count 7 on top, starting from Satyaloka down to Bhuloka. And then on the below side, you have Atala all the way to Patala. So there is 7 over there. So 7 plus 7 makes it 14. We live in the central one, which is called Bhuloka. And what we also have, what is a time correlation between these planetary spaces. So if you take the third world, which is the Swargaloka, the Swarloka, and Bhuloka, the correlation is 1 day to 1 year. So 1 day in Swarloka is equal to 1 year on Earth. And much the same way, 1 day in Satyaloka is equal to 8.64 billion years in the Bhuloka. So the higher you go is like, you have longer lifespan, and there's like so much opulence and happiness and stuff like that. And it kind of grades up and up all the way. Now, this is just the composition of one universe. That is one universe that we live in. Okay, for some reason it didn't go. Okay. So here you see the inner circle here. This is the 14 lokas, or the 14 planes of existence. And there are other contributors within this universe, and this is like one universe. Now, like this, Hindu scriptures say there are many universes. So here is another depiction. These are all just artistic depictions. So just take them as artist's impression. Nobody has gone there to see them, right? This is what the scriptures say. This is one universe, and then you have another universe, another universe. So this is actually a multiverse. And this one universe, the one that we are living in, each one has a different calendar and a different time cycle. This one universe that we are in presently is about 155 trillion years, and it has, another 155 trillion years to go. So we have like kind of exact math for all these years translated. There is actually a Wikipedia page. If you go to Wikipedia and search for Hindu units of time, you will get a page. All these are dealt with, including the evidence from the scriptures. It's all dealt with in greater detail in that Wikipedia page. You may use that as a reference. So here again is the artistic depiction of what some of these people in the outside world may look like. So, there are description of this elephant with 4 trunks, and things like that. So this is the first one is the picture of Sun, who is riding 7 horses, each horse being a depiction of 1 day. So which is why the week has, 7 days. And again, this is all, and there are also wars that happen in outer space between, the good forces and the bad forces. So they're all out there. So these things happen outside, again, artistic depiction. So if we are done with that, that's to say, Hinduism is truly global. We don't know the size of people that are living in the population of people in the outer world, but all of these 14 planes of existence that I shared with you, they have human-like, but they're more capable. There are animals, there are plants, there are rivers, there are mountains, there are names, there are descriptions. All of them are there in the scriptures. Now let's turn to a bigger question. I, as a human being, I want to achieve something higher. We all want to achieve higher goals than where we are presently. So if I wanted to go to one of these higher worlds, how do I go? Can I go with this body? Do I need to change to another body that goes? So that answer is there. So what really travels to the world, to these worlds, is called Atma. What is Atma? Is the quintessential me. It's the intelligence within me. So the Atma is eternal. It cannot be killed or destroyed. It is atomic in size, invisible. You cannot see it with your naked eye, but you can. The scriptures, if you follow them, there is something called Ashtanga Yoga. Very, very difficult. Some people have done it and they have gone all the way to view or see in the mind's eye what the Atma looks like. And they don't have words to describe it. So essentially what happens is we take on one life, and then this Atma has, so essentially what we say is when we take birth, the Atma takes on this body. And then once it becomes old, the Atma discards this body and moves on to take another body. So when the Atma takes another body, we call it as birth. When the Atma leaves the body, we call it as death. So like that, you have birth and death, and then goes on to the next body, and it's been an infinite cycle that this Atma has been taking in various bodies. Now, which basically means we who are born today as human beings may have been an animal or an insect or a bird in the past life. We may become an animal, insect, or bird in the future life also. It may be some kind of a life form. So the attempt of Hinduism is, what do we do in this life that will help you go to the higher worlds and become a deva? So let's try to understand what is this Atma. Basically, it's not our body. So I've given some, a small little exercise for you to think about for yourself. So when I say, I have a book in front of me, when I say this is my book, so the my represents that I have an I which owns this book. So typically, we know that I is different from the book. The book is separate. It's sitting on a table and I am different. So the same way when I say my phone, I is different from the phone. The phone is owned and the I is the owner. So much the same way when I say it's my body, the I is different from the body, right? And I is different from the head, I is different from the hand. So the same way when I say my mind, I is different from the mind. It's not even the mind. It's not your breath. It's not your soul. So the I essentially is the awareness, intelligence. So some translate it to what is called self-awareness. But basically, the Atma is the intelligence that I am I. And when it takes on a different body, it tends to think I am this body. It tends to think, but it's really not. So as a human being, I feel, oh, I'm a human. Then when I go into a lion's body, I'll say, oh, I'm a lion, or I'm a goat, I'm an ant. So it tends to think that way, but it's not. The very fact that it says that means it's different from the body. The Atma is essentially the intelligence with which thinks and makes decisions. So this Atma, this intelligence, is what goes from one body to another. And because of the process of birth, you don't remember anything from your previous life. So let's look at what determines the Atma's next life. And here I bring in the building blocks of Hinduism, which is dharma and karma. So dharma is the ethics framework, and karma is a merit system. Okay. So, and because of these two, a kind of a business process has been put in place. Therefore, there is life before and life after death. So what is dharma? Dharma is it's a pretty exhaustive framework. It's equally applicable in the 14 worlds. It's all encapsulated in the various Hindu scriptures. So it has ethics. It deals with duties, values, recommended practices, and procedures. All of these are contained in various places in the scriptures. And they even vary by the phase of life that we are in. And just wanted to bring about an interesting factoid. According to the Hindu scriptures, social distancing was a recommended practice in the Hindu scriptures much before we started, before COVID came here. And you might have seen Hindus practicing namaste with folded hands, which instead of shaking hands, which actually emerged from the social distancing practice, so that you don't have to shake hands. Let's try to understand the karma, which is the merit system. So we all make decisions and act according to those decisions in our daily life. So we all are endowed with free will, and with the free will, we make those decisions, and we have an intent behind that. And based on the decisions, we have actions. Now, if our decisions and our actions are aligned with the dharma, which is the framework, the ethics framework, then you get merits, and it keeps adding on one side. And if they are not aligned with dharma, so it's called adharma, the opposite, you accrue demerits. These are again points that you keep accruing over multiple lifetimes. So the alignment with dharma is therefore important part of why we should study the scriptures and understand the dharma framework before we act. Okay, and these merits and demerits keep accruing in our lives, life after life after life. Now, how do you get rid of these merits and demerits? Is when now we make some action, and then there is some kind of a reaction or some result. As a result of that, either you are happy or you are sad or you are unhappy. So if you are happy, that means your merits are getting spent. If you're unhappy, that means your demerits are getting spent. So you have you have both of them, right? Merits and demerits. So which is why we say life on earth is a constant change from merits to demerits, or happiness and sadness. Happiness and sadness always come alternating. If you're overly happy now, sometimes later you're going to feel sad, and sometimes after that pain or sadness goes away again, you start feeling happy. It's an alternating thing that helps you spend your merits and demerits. But what happens is, you have three types of karma. One is the stored karma, which is like from all the previous lives, what you have accumulated. The destiny karma is what you are spending in the present life. And the seed karma is what you are performing now, which gets added to the backlog of the stored karma. And the human body or an animal body or any body that the Atma takes is just an instrument to help you spend that karma. So here's another artistic depiction. So you can see how after birth, you go on, you die, and after death, you could become an animal or any other living creature. There's no, it all depends on your karma, what you become in your next life. So what really happens, how do you take on the next birth is, if you have substantially higher merits and lower quantum of demerits, you take your next life is, one of a deva, that is a higher life form in a higher world. If merits and demerits are kind of balanced, you become a human. If the merits are lower and your demerits are higher, then you take on a lower life form like an animal, reptile, bird, insect, or plant. And once you exhaust the complete merits and demerits quota that you have accumulated, you get what Hinduism calls as moksha, which is beyond the 14 worlds, beyond the multiverse that we talked about. That is what may be referred to as the kingdom of God. Now let's try to understand God in Hinduism. There is just one God, and he is called Brahman. He is literally infinite. So he is so big. So he's so big in his intelligence, in his wisdom, in his physical dimensions, and he is full of virtues, and you can't count his virtues. He transformed a tiny part of his body into this visible multiverse that today is existing. So, and he is said to take on forms and things like that. So where is Brahma? Where is this God? He exists in 5 different forms. The first one is the para form. The para form is in his infinite mode in his kingdom, right? I told you about the kingdom of God. He exists there in this, beyond this multiverse. In Vyuha form, he exists in one of the 14 upper worlds, not necessarily on earth, but one of the upper worlds where he comes to meet the devas and listen to them. Vibhava form is where he comes down to earth as an avatar. So examples are Rama, Krishna, and all these various avatars. He comes here and he lives amidst us an entire lifespan. Like Rama is said to have lived 11,000 years. Like he's said to have ruled for 11,000 years. And then in Antaryami form is a very important form. Inside, I talked about the Atma. He lives inside the Atma. Okay, so that's the Antaryami form. He lives as an Antaryami inside every one of us, every human being, every animal, every insect, even he lives in a stone. Okay, he's in animate and inanimate objects as well. So intelligent and non-intelligent objects. And then finally, he is in an archa form, which he lives as a murti or a vigraha in the temples, the Hindu temples, where we go and Like he makes himself an object of worship where we can go and worship him. So these are the various forms in which he exists. He exists in all the 5 forms at any given point in time. Just no thing like, oh, the para form is not existing when he comes down in Vibhava form or Antaryami form. He is always existing in all the 5 forms everywhere. So where do we know this from? From Bhagavad Gita 15:15. I am seated in the hearts of all living beings, and from me comes memory, knowledge, and even forgetfulness. So if you forget about something, you know where it's coming from. I am to be known exclusively by all the Vedas. So the Vedas are the scriptures, and you learn about him from the Vedas. Okay, so in summary, Hinduism is a framework for intellectual evolution of humankind. I'm calling it as intellectual evolution because Atma is intelligence, which is aspiring to go to the higher world, right? So I'm calling it as an intellectual evolution. It's not a physical evolution like what Darwin said. It's intellectual evolution is what Hinduism says. Then there exist 14 worlds in the universe, in this universe, and there are multiple universes. Each of us have the ability to evolve to a higher life form in one of the higher worlds. Dharma and karma are the building blocks to get there. There is one infinite Brahman, what we call as God. And, Atma is the intelligence in each of us that wants to eternally evolve, and it is eternal, it doesn't die.
Well, we want to thank you so much. Our class period, this is perfect timing because our class period is now up. But thank you so much. And it was such a pleasure to learn and fascinating. Can you give our guest a...
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking to all of you. I'm